I think you could say that the miners of southern Colorado in that period were among the most painfully oppressed anywhere in the world.
George McGovern, Democratic presidential candidate in 1972. He wrote his Ph.D. dissertation and a book on the struggle of the Colorado miners.
They lived in company towns where everything was owned by the company. The stores where they bought their groceries and supplies, the churches, the schools, even the courts were more or less controlled by the companies in that period. And these miners worked under the most appalling conditions. The mines were very dangerous. It was not unusual for 100 or 200 miners to be killed in a single year. And of course, at that time, they worked at subsistent wages without any union representation.
When the miners of Colorado were poor, hard-working men. Now Rockefeller, he was a rich man. He owned the mines and he owned the land. He wrote the law books for Colorado, and the sheriff was his right hand.
United Mine Workers moved in an effort to organize the coal fields. When the major coal companies refused to meet with the union representatives, the strike was called, and about 13,000 miners and their families moved out of the company towns, moved into tents that were provided by the union.
Will the miners, they took to striking for union and a living wage.
Strikers did not have a very high standing in the eyes of the American public when this strike began in 1913. It was just generally taken for granted that if you were on strike, you were unappreciative, you were undisciplined, you were under the control of sinister foreign influences, you weren't quite loyal to the nation, and therefore every resource of the police power or private corporate power that could be directed at breaking the strike was generally accepted.
Call the militia, get vigilantes, we'll get 'em guns, don't you spare no cause, 'cause we have got to show them dirty miners that Rockefeller, he is the boss. And so one morning, without warning, that state militia, they opened fire.
The soldiers raked the colony with machine guns and then set fire to the tents which housed the families of the miners. The next day, 53 people lay dead. Among them, the charred bodies of 13 women and children pulled from the ashes of their homes. The date, April 20th, 1914, the day of the Ludlow massacre. It was headline news across the country. For the first time, public opinion sympathized with the strikers. Rockefeller was condemned as the man behind the guns, the murderer of women and children. The writer Upton Sinclair organized pickets wearing the crepe armbands of mourning to stand vigil outside Rockefeller's home, office, and places of worship. Bloody Ludlow would not be forgotten. Rockefeller Jr. was moved to act. The vilification of his family's name had gone far enough. It was time to refurbish the Rockefeller image. He turned to a former newspaper man with the reputation for clever handling of the publicity problems of big business, a man with the unusual name Ivy Ledbetter Lee.
It was the first time in any American labor struggle where you had an organized effort to use what has become modern public relations to sell one side of the strike to the American people, in this case, the Rockefeller or the management side. There were a variety of techniques that Ivy Lee used. It was a total public relations campaign. It included, first of all, a series of fact sheets that he published to give the mine operator side of the strike everything was done to discredit the strikers morally and to paint them as substandard citizens. Ivy Lee engaged the services of prominent people to sign articles that gave the mine operator's side of the story. He persuaded the governor of Colorado to sign such a public letter that was widely distributed across the country, even delivered personally to the President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson. This effort on the part of Ivy Lee to put a more favorable interpretation on the strike as far as the managers were concerned, plus the publicized trips by Mr. Rockefeller to Colorado, his effort to come to know the miners firsthand, pictures of him visiting with strike organizers, talking with the miners and their families, asking the mothers about the conditions in the homes, asking the miners about the conditions underground. So this was the general thrust, just frankly to do a snow job for the mine operators and to discredit the union in every possible way. And I must say that while they didn't exceed 100%, they were sufficiently successful in it so that they did change the public perception of the mine operators and their responsibility for the strike. It's a lot cheaper for Rockefeller and his colleagues to pay Ivy Lee $1,000 a month to give them a new face than it would be to address the grievances of pay that was too low, hours that were too long, mines that were unsafe, housing that was substandard, and all the rest.